Now to a follow-up. On a federal lawsuit against a former Rusk County Sheriff's deputy, a federal judge has denied qualified immunity for former Sergeant Shane Iverson. In September of 2022, Sergeant Iverson shot and killed 29-year-old Timothy Randall during a traffic stop. Randall's family is in the middle of a federal lawsuit. KLTV's J.D. Conti spoke with their lawyer on what this decision means for their case.
He has his hands up and he's shot.
A federal judge sided with the family of Timothy Randall and their lawyer Joseph Oxman. Randall was shot and killed by Rusk County Deputy Shane Iverson over 2 years ago. In a recent recommendation, Judge John Love ruling Iverson no longer has qualified immunity, a legal concept that keeps law enforcement and government officials immune from civil suits. Under federal law, qualified immunity goes away once a judge determines a defendant's actions violated a person's constitutional rights. The ruling means the civil suit now moves forward to a jury. Both sides will have to conduct additional discovery before that happens. During the stop, Randall steps out of the vehicle after Deputy Iverson asks,
"Please, can you tell me what I'm under arrest for, please?"
The attorney for Rusk County and Shane Iverson told us the deputy felt what he believed to be a small pistol on Randall. It turned out to be a meth pipe. In his ruling, Judge Love cast a doubt on that argument. Iverson eventually throws him to the ground. After a struggle, Iverson pulls his gun on Randall and shoots. At the time of the shot, Randall has his hands up and is running away.
Get out!
Judge Love sided with the Randall family, noting that Randall's resistance was not violent. He continues, saying a jury could find Iverson's actions unreasonable.
At the moment he fires his weapon, Iverson clearly could see that his hands were up and that Randall was posing absolutely zero deadly threat.
Iverson was no-billed by a Rusk County grand jury, meaning he can't face criminal charges. In Texas, grand jury proceedings are secret. It's unclear whether the grand jury saw the video. The Rusk County District Attorney declined comment when we asked him in June of last year. J.D. Conti, KLTV 7 News.
Shane Iverson's attorneys tell us they are in trial today. Lee Correa said that they will have more to say, but for now, I can say the report and recommendation that was entered is not a final determination on the issue of qualified immunity. Both sides have 14 days to file written objections to this ruling.